Zanele sat alone in the quiet office, rubbing her temples as she saved the final report on her computer. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, but she barely noticed. Her mind was exhausted, her shoulders heavy. It had been another grueling day at the property firm where she worked as an assistant project manager. For months now, she'd been pouring her soul into one thing, landing the upcoming development deal that could finally put her in line for promotion. Every late night, every skipped lunch, every weekend email had been for this one chance. But tonight, all she wanted was to breathe. She reached for her phone and dialed Kwesi, her boyfriend. It was routine. She always called him after work just to talk, to laugh, to feel normal again. But tonight, the video call didn't go through. She tried. Again. Still nothing. A sigh escaped her lips as she slumped back into her chair. Was he sleeping? Busy? Ignoring her? After a long pause, she smirked to herself. Let me remind him what he's missing. With a playful glint in her tired eyes, Zanele snapped 4 private photos, teasing, a little bold, nothing she hadn't sent before. She chuckled softly, feeling a flicker of confidence. Phone in hand, she walked toward the bathroom and said without thinking, "Send my last 4 photos to Kwesi." Her smart assistant beeped back. "Sending your last 4 photos to your boss, Mr. Maseko." Zanele stopped walking. Her heart jolted so hard it nearly knocked her off balance. "No, no, no!" she gasped, sprinting back to her desk. Fingers trembling, she unlocked her phone. She opened her messages. There it was. Sent. Delivered. Read to Mr. Maseko, her boss. Her blood turned cold. The room felt like it tilted sideways. She tapped wildly to delete it. Too late. The photos were already opened. Already seen. Zanele's knees buckled and she collapsed into her chair, hand over her mouth. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a war drum. This didn't happen, she whispered to herself. It didn't. It can't. But it had. That night, she barely slept. She tossed and turned, haunted by what she'd done. What if Mr. Maseko used the pictures against her? What if he told someone? Or worse, what if he said nothing at all? By morning, her stomach was in knots. Her eyes were red from crying. She dressed carefully, choosing the most modest blouse she owned, and headed to work with a weight pressing against her chest. As she entered the office lobby, her phone buzzed. Message from Mr. Maseko. "Come to my office." Her pulse quickened. She stood frozen in place for a moment. Could she ignore it, pretend nothing happened? No, she couldn't hide. Straightening her back, she walked toward the top floor, each step heavier than the last. At his door, she paused, exhaled, and knocked. "Come in," came the familiar voice. Mr. Maseko sat behind his polished desk, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the surface. His suit was crisp, his eyes unreadable. "Good morning, Zanele," he said, lips curling slightly. "I suppose you know why you're here." Zanele nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." Without another word, he picked up his phone and tapped the screen. Then he turned it toward her, her photos, all 4 of them, displayed in full. She felt her face burn, her fists clenched at her sides. Mr. Maseko leaned back in his chair. "I'm assuming you didn't mean for these to land in my inbox." "No, sir," she said quietly. "It was an accident. I meant to send them to my partner. Please delete them." He chuckled, low and cold. "Oh, I'm afraid I won't be doing that." Zanele's eyes widened. "You see," he continued, "I've been observing you. You're driven, you're sharp. You've worked harder than anyone else on the team." He paused. "And now, you've given me an advantage." Her heart dropped. "Advantage?" she asked, voice trembling. Mr. Maseko folded his hands and leaned forward. "The board has been discussing who to place in charge of the upcoming Marina Heights project." Zanele's breath caught. "I want that project," he said bluntly. "But you're the top recommendation, so here's what we'll do. You will speak to the board and remove yourself from consideration. Instead, you'll suggest my name. Do that. And these photos remain our little secret." The air left her lungs. She stared at him, disbelief and fury fighting inside her chest. "Sir, that project, I've worked night and day for it. You can't just take—" He interrupted, tone suddenly ice-cold. "Fairness is a funny thing, Zanele." He lifted the phone again. Her images remained on screen. She bit her lip to stop it from trembling. He didn't have to say it. The threat was clear. Zanele looked down, shame creeping into every bone. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll do it." Mr. Masako smiled. "Good girl. The board meets in an hour. Don't disappoint me." As she walked out of his office, she felt like something inside her had cracked. She had just given up everything. The biggest opportunity of Zanele's career had slipped through her fingers because of one mistake. An hour later, she stood at the front of the boardroom. The walls around her felt too tall, too silent. Mr. Tando, the company's CEO, looked up from his notes and offered a warm smile. "Zanele," he said, "we are looking forward to your presentation today." Her heart thudded in her chest. She gripped the table, her palms damp with sweat. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly. "I won't be presenting today." Mr. Tando blinked, startled. "Excuse me," she forced the words out, her throat tight. "I'd like to withdraw from the project and recommend Mr. Masako to take the lead." The air in the room thickened. For a moment, no one spoke. Mr. Tando slowly removed his glasses. "You've led this project from day one," he said. "You've poured your heart into it. Why would you step down now?" Zanele's tongue felt heavy. The truth burned on her lips. She wanted to scream that Mr. Masako was a predator, that he was holding her life in his hands. But fear silenced her. "I just believe he has more experience," she lied, each word tasting like ash. "He deserves it more." Mr. Tando narrowed his eyes, studying her face. "Is someone pressuring you to do this?" She paused. If she told the truth, Mr. Masako might destroy her. He'd already threatened to show those pictures. She shook her head. "No, sir. It's my choice." He didn't look convinced, but after a long pause, he nodded. "If that's what you want." Zanele turned to leave, her shoulders weighed down with shame. Outside, waiting by the hallway like a vulture, stood Mr. Masako. He smirked the moment she appeared. "Good girl," he murmured. "But we're not finished." Her blood turned cold. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. He leaned closer, his voice like poison. "I want more than just the project. I want you." Zanele staggered back, horrified. "Tomorrow evening," he said calmly, "after my presentation, I'll send you the hotel details. You'll come, or—" He raised his eyebrows meaningfully. "You already know what happens if you don't." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "I won't do that." "You will," he said with a grin, "unless you want your pictures forwarded to every manager in this building." He walked away without another word, leaving her frozen in place. Tears welled up in her eyes and spilled down her cheeks as she returned to her desk. She stared blankly at her screen, hands trembling. Her mind swirled with anger, fear, and despair. Had taken her work, her dignity, and now he wanted her body. She wanted to fight, but how? If she refused, he would ruin her. If she gave in, she would never forgive herself. A tear slid down her face. She wiped it away fast. She needed to think. She needed a way out. Just then, her office phone buzzed. "Mr. Tando would like to see you." Her breath caught. Had he guessed something? Had he seen something? Was this her chance? With shaky legs, she walked to the CEO's office. Mr. Tando sat behind his desk, gesturing for her to take a seat. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Zanele," he began, leaning forward, "I've been doing this for over 30 years. I know when someone's lying to me." She stiffened in her seat. "You didn't work day and night for this project just to hand it over," he said. "And after the meeting, I saw you talking to Mr. Masako. You looked shaken." Her fingers gripped the chair. "Tell me the truth," he said gently. "Is Mr. Maseko pressuring you?" Zanele opened her mouth. No sound came out. She wanted to confess everything, to unburden herself. But the fear lingered. What if Mr. Maseko retaliated? What if no one believed her? She dropped her gaze. "No, sir. It was my decision." Mr. Tando didn't push. He only sighed, disappointment flickering across his face. But then, a knock on the door. His secretary stepped in. "Sir, you might want to see this." She handed him a USB stick. "It's the CCTV recording from the corridor after the meeting." Zanele's heart stuttered. Mr. Tando inserted the drive and pressed play. There it was. The silent footage showed her and Mr. Maseko talking just outside the boardroom. Zanele's face was pale, her eyes glassy, her lips quivering. Maseko leaned close, whispering something. Her body stiffened, her arms wrapped around herself. It didn't have sound, but the message was loud and clear. Mr. Tando paused the video and turned to her. "Are you still telling me this man isn't threatening you?" Zanele felt her lungs seize. This was it, her moment. She inhaled shakily and whispered, "I made a terrible mistake." Tears welled in her eyes as she finally spoke. "I sent something private to him, by accident, and now he's blackmailing me. He made me give up the project, and tomorrow he wants me to meet him at a hotel." Mr. Tando's face darkened. With fury. "Blackmail," he muttered. His jaw clenched. Zanele nodded, wiping her eyes. "For the first time I thought, maybe I don't have to fight this alone." Mr. Tando stood. "Don't worry," he said, his voice now firm and commanding. "He thinks he's clever, but by tomorrow he'll regret ever threatening you." For the first time in days, Zanele felt the tiniest spark of hope. The nightmare wasn't over yet, but the tide was finally turning. Mr. Tando leaned back in his chair, his fingers pressed together, deep in thought. "Zanele," he said quietly, "it took courage to tell me the truth, but now we must move with wisdom. If we confront Mr. Maseko too soon, he might act out of spite and leak the photos." Zanele nodded, her chest tight with anxiety. "Then what can we do?" she asked, her voice barely steady. Mr. Tando's eyes narrowed, sharp and focused. "We set a trap." He picked up his phone and dialed swiftly. "Send in Boitumelo and Detective Kamau, right now." Minutes later, 2 men entered the room. Boitumelo, the head of IT, had a serious face and sharp eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. Beside him stood Detective Kamau, a seasoned private investigator known for handling sensitive matters within the company. "We've got a serious issue," Mr. Tando began. He turned to Zanele. "Please, tell them what you told me." Zanele hesitated for a second, then took a breath. Her voice shook as she repeated everything, how the photos were sent in error, how Mr. Maseko had used them to blackmail her into surrendering her project, and now how he was demanding more, demanding her. Boitumelo's jaw clenched. "This is criminal," he muttered. "If he stored the images on cloud storage or his device, I can track them, intercept them, even wipe them remotely. But we need access first." Detective Kamau folded his arms. "That's fine, but for this to hold up, we need hard evidence. Something that shows intent. If we can catch him in the act of threatening her, it's game over." Mr. Tando nodded. "That's where the plan comes in?" He turned to Zanele, meeting her eyes. "You're going to meet him at that hotel." Her breath caught. "No, I can't." "You won't be alone," Mr. Tando assured her quickly. "We'll wire you with a small recorder. Once he says the wrong thing, we'll have everything we need. And when we're done, I promise, he'll never work in this city again." Zanele's heart thundered in her ears. The idea terrified her, but in Mr. Tando's voice she heard conviction, strength. He was determined to protect her. She swallowed and gave a slow nod. "All right, let's do it." The next afternoon, Zanele received the message she had been dreading. "Mr. Maseko, Room 305. Don't be late. She stared at the text, fists clenched, but this time there was no fear, only fire. In the bathroom mirror, she adjusted the small recording device pinned under her blouse. Detective Kamau stood nearby, his voice low but firm. We'll be in position the whole time. The second he says anything incriminating, we move. Zanele nodded, then headed to the hotel. In the lobby, she scanned the space. There, Detective Kamau sat with two undercover officers, each dressed like ordinary guests. They gave her subtle nods as she walked past. Outside room 305, Zanele hesitated. Her heart pounded, her palms were damp. She knocked. The door opened slowly. Mr. Maseko stood there wearing a smug grin. "Right on time," he said, stepping aside to let her in. Zanele walked in, her eyes scanning the room. Her stomach churned. The door shut behind her with a heavy click. Mr. Maseko turned to face her. "You made the right choice," he said, his tone slick and confident. "Now let's have some real fun, shall we?" Zanele forced a nervous laugh. "Wait. Before anything," she said softly, "I just want to understand something." He raised an eyebrow. "Why did you take the project from me?" she asked. "No, was it just—" "Because you could." He chuckled and shrugged. "Exactly. You had no leverage, just like now." Zanele's pulse raced, but she kept her face calm. "And what if I'd refused to come here?" His face darkened. "Then, those pictures would be on every screen by now," he replied coldly. "You'd be ruined, fired, shamed, but lucky for you, you listened." In that moment, the door burst open. 3 men stormed in, Detective Kamau and the 2 security officers, all flashing badges as they entered. Mr. Maseko stepped back, startled. "What the hell is this?" And then came Mr. Tando, stepping in last, his arms crossed, his gaze full of icy judgment. "It's over," he said. "We heard everything." Mr. Maseko's face drained of color. You tricked me!" Zanele stepped forward, her fear gone, her voice strong. "No, Maseko, you trapped yourself." He looked between them, desperate. This is illegal. You can't just record me like that." Detective Kamau smirked. "Actually, we can. We're extorting an employee. That's blackmail and sexual coercion, both criminal. And thanks to your big mouth, we have everything on tape." Maseko's eyes flared with fury. He pointed a trembling finger at Zanele. "You set me up." She didn't flinch. "You set yourself up the day you decided to use my mistake for power." Mr. Tando stepped forward, every word like thunder. "You're done. Not only are you terminated effective immediately, but will also ensure every firm in this industry knows exactly who you are and what you've done." Maseko collapsed into the nearby chair, shaking. No more smirk, no more power. He was finished. Mr. Maseko's anger quickly twisted into desperation. "Wait, please," he stammered, his voice shaky. "We don't have to do this. Let's talk. I'm sure we can work something out." Mr. Tando didn't even blink. "The only deal you'll be making now is with the police." Right then, 2 uniformed officers stepped through the doorway. "Mr. Maseko," one said, taking out a pair of handcuffs, "you are under arrest for blackmail, harassment, and coercive threats." The color drained from Maseko's face. No, wait, you don't understand. This isn't what it looks like," he shouted, as the officers pulled his arms behind him and tightened the cuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," the officer continued, reading his rights with calm authority. Zanele stood still, watching as Maseko was restrained and led out of the room. Her breath came in short bursts, her chest lifted like a heavy weight was being peeled away. As the door slammed behind him, his last words echoed, venomous and small. "Zanele, you'll regret this, I swear it." But his threats couldn't touch her anymore. Silence fell in the room. Zanele staggered slightly, and Mr. Tando stepped beside her, steadying her with a hand on her shoulder. "It's over now," he said softly. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear or shame, but from the quiet flood of relief. She had survived. She had fought back, and she had won. News of Mr. Maseko's arrest traveled fast through the company halls. Some staff members were stunned. Others said they always suspected something. But all agreed on one thing. Maseko was finished. The next morning, Mr. Tando called an emergency board meeting. "Yesterday revealed the rot within our ranks," he said gravely, looking at the circle of senior leaders. Mr. Maseko was not only unfit, he weaponized his power in one of the most damaging ways possible. The board members nodded, murmuring in agreement. Then Mr. Tando turned to Zanele, who sat quietly at the edge of the room. "Zanele," he said, his voice clear and unwavering. "You carried that project from start to finish. You earned every bit of recognition. So today, I'm proud to name you our new Assistant Director of Operations." Her mouth fell open slightly. "Sir, are you serious?" Mr. Tando smiled. "Very." The boardroom erupted into applause, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Zanele smiled from deep within. She had faced her darkest hour and emerged with her head held high. A week later, Zanele sat in her new office. The mahogany desk gleamed beneath the sunlight pouring in. Framed certificates lined the wall. Flowers from co-workers filled a side table. Everything was different now. Her mind drifted back to the chaos. The night she sent that message by accident. The threats, the shame, the fear, and how all of it had led here. She glanced at her phone. A message from Kwame lit up her screen. "I'm so proud of you, my love. You're the strongest woman I know." Zanele's heart warmed. Kwame had been her rock. Even when she hadn't told him the full story, he stood by her, never demanding explanations, only offering steady, quiet support. She tapped his name and pressed the call button. He picked up instantly. "Hey, my lioness," he said, voice full of affection. "How's the new office?" Zanele chuckled. "It still smells like fresh paint and power." Kwame laughed gently. "That's my girl. But," she added, "I also wanted to talk to you about everything." And so, for the next few minutes, she told him everything, how it had all started, the accidental photos, the threats, the trap they set with Mr. Tando and Detective Kamau, and how justice had finally won. There was a long pause. Then Kwame's voice came through, calm and loving. "Zanele, I wish you'd told me sooner." "I know," she said quietly. "I was scared. I didn't want to burden you." "You're never a burden," he said, "and you're never alone." Her throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you. You didn't let that man destroy you," Kwame continued. "You faced the fire and walked out glowing." Zanele wiped a tear, grateful for him more than ever. A few days later, Zanele sat in a courtroom. Her palms rested on her knees as Mr. Maseko stood in front of the judge, pale and deflated. "All evidence confirms," the judge declared, "that the defendant used private material to blackmail and coerce a colleague for personal gain. This is a serious offense. I hereby sentence Fred Maseko to 2 years in prison, with a permanent ban from holding corporate positions." Mr. Maseko flinched at the words. He turned once to look at Zanele, his eyes filled with hate. But she didn't flinch. She didn't feel fear, only pity. He had done this to himself. As the guards escorted him out, Mr. Tando leaned over and whispered, "Justice served." Zanele nodded, her chest light. This part of the story was finally over. Months passed, and Zanele thrived. In her new position, the office staff admired her not just for her sharp mind and work ethic, but for her courage, how she had stood up for herself when it mattered most. One golden evening, as she stepped outside the building, she spotted Kwame leaning casually against his car, a knowing smile on his face. He opened his arms and she walked into his warm embrace. "I've got something for you," he said, pulling back slightly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Zanele gasped softly as he opened it to reveal a delicate gold ring, glittering in the last rays of sunlight. "Zanele," Kwame said, his voice tender, "you've faced storms and still stood tall. I want to stand with you for every day after this. Will you marry me?" Her breath caught. "Yes," she whispered, eyes brimming with joyful tears. "1,000 times yes." They kissed under the open sky, the city lights blinking softly. In the distance, Zanele had walked through darkness, but now, hand in hand with love, she stepped into a life of brightness, strength, and endless possibility.